what's up. I'm going to redo this. I hope you enjoy this. The overtime, big. I was scared of the overtime because it's like football. The first to score wins it.
Pointed his lightsaber at Anakin.
Your type half-used dark side fighting style, but rather the full potential of the Sith.
Well,
twirling his lightsaber, he jumped straight for Anakin.
Lightsaber
spiked Cyclone on fire, hurling himself towards Skywalker, who stood guarded and confident.
When we will not, Pt1. Master Yoda, I sense the battle within you. And once all your Jedi are killed, I will give you one last chance to be my apprentice.
Yoda had enough. He used a very powerful force push to throw Palpatine back over his desk and into the wall, as Mace used the opportunity to run to Sidious and finish him. Yoda screamed for him to stop.
No.
However, it was too late. Sidious pretended to get up slowly until Windu was about to kill him when he used the dark side to spin very fast and slice the Jedi Master's legs off from the thigh. Screaming in pain, Mace lay on the ground looking at his severed legs, twitching in front of him. Palpatine moved to finish him when Yoda jumped to stop him.
It's your fault I died. You didn't train me properly. I was lucky enough that my master saved me and unlocked my full potential. Now, you will die, old man.
Kenobi spoke with such hatred and defiance. However, Qui-Gon knew the good was still within him. He knew he could bring him back. He couldn't kill him now. He planned to disarm him and save him, bringing him back to the light side. They continued their duel in a cluster of red and green movements. Anakin found it difficult to keep up with Maul's insane speed, acrobatics, and brute physical strength. He was lucky to have had lots of lightsaber training from Master Windu, who taught him the form of the pod, a variant he invented himself from the 7th form of lightsaber combat, allowing him to channel his dark side emotions and funnel it through to his dueling. Maul leapt over any obstacle and off all walls, using his surroundings to his advantage. Anakin couldn't beat him. He was being backed into the corner when he heard a guttural noise as he looked in the corner of his eye and saw Obi-Wan move his lightsaber out of Qui-Gon's stomach. Screaming with despair, he could feel the tears leaking down his cheeks as he dodged, ducked, and dipped under Maul's twirling blades. The dark side bubbled within him. Obi-Wan turned to look at Mace as he moved to finish him, who laid on the floor whimpering as he watched Yoda and Palpatine fight one-on-one with astonishing speeds. He knew this maybe was death, as he was far too weak and immobilized to defend himself for long.
How do you like that, boy? 2 down, 2 more little Jedi pigs to...
Maul looked at Anakin straight in the eyes as he started to mumble a sentence, but fell to the floor, splitting in half, this time vertically.
Let's see you come back from that,
murmured Anakin. He quickly turned and drew on the Force to move Qui-Gon's lightsaber. Instead of summoning it to his own hand, he raised it in the air and threw it to Obi-Wan's direction. This was a power he was still trying to perfect, but it was far too difficult for him. He missed Obi-Wan, but he didn't fail completely. He managed to sever his hands as Obi-Wan raised his saber above his head, grasping it with both hands. Screaming in pain, he dropped to his knees and looked at his fingers, all moving around on the floor like spiders. Anakin moved to Obi-Wan, completely silent, but with hatred Mace had never seen before. Anakin's dark side was the only part of the Force he was drawing on after seeing Qui-Gon die. Yoda flew into the wall as
How you
Palpatine
like that,
pushed him
LA?
aside with the Force, looking at Anakin, telling him to do it. Anakin paused and held his and his master's saber up to Obi-Wan's throat as he looked to Palpatine and said, "F off." Summoning the Force to propel his and Qui-Gon's lightsaber through Palpatine's chest and out his back. With a clunk, the Dark Lord fell to the floor, eyes fixed on Anakin as he plummeted face first. Skywalker won't go. As Anakin was about to end Kenobi, Yoda rushed to stop him, telling him he could be turned back to normal.
Much reading I have to bring Kenobi back to the light.
Anakin bowed to his master as Yoda called for medical attention. Jedi Temple guards arrived to escort Obi-Wan to his confined cell within the temple until Yoda could find the right books, or if all failed, he would search the galaxy for the legendary Jedi wizard to do the job and bring Obi-Wan back. A worthy chancellor would be appointed to office while Anakin and Padme would live happily, awaiting the birth of their two children, Luke and Leia, whose names were already enrolled in the Jedi Temple, awaiting their training in the ways of the Force under Yoda, their father. The galaxy had been restored to peace as the Sith were dead. Everyone lived happily ever after. Or
Well, guys, if you like this
Hello
episode
everyone and welcome to this episode
and want me to
of Star
finish
Wars Theory.
and want me to
In
continue
this
the
video,
series,
we will discuss
I'll
the
start a
outcome
new
of the
season with
characters and
new
the fate of the
names,
galaxy
new characters,
if
and
Obi-Wan
different teams.
never had the high ground in Revenge of the Sith. As they fought over the lava and Anakin was first to see this opportunity, just as Obi-Wan had, instead of becoming arrogant and cocky by attempting to jump over Kenobi, he jumped at the exact same time as Obi-Wan had. This would leave them both to land on the high ground at the same time, making it simply level ground. Continuing their duel as the planet continued to become unstable. If Anakin were to actually follow through with what he knew was the right choice and didn't become overconfident of his new powers to save him, I believe he would have broken through Kenobi's Form 5 defensive lightsaber style, eventually after continuing his reign of aggressive attacks. Kenobi, being respectably older than Anakin at almost 40 years old, his speed, powers, and endurance was not as fresh as Anakin's, who was nearing the age of 24. I believe he would have eventually met the same fate as Qui-Gon Jinn had with his battle with Darth Maul. Although Jinn was holding his own very well at the start of the fight, he eventually became tired due to his near 60-year-old age, leaving him to open his guard and fall to his demise. Obi-Wan, being a good 20 years younger than this, would have been able to withstand much longer than his former master, however, not for much longer. I believe he leapt onto the high ground for two reasons. One being the obvious so that he had an advantage, but two, because he knew he could not keep up with Anakin's abilities for much longer, and needed to think smarter rather than fight harder. The duel would result in Anakin severing Obi-Wan's limbs to the point of him becoming immobile and stranded. Vader would then leave Mustafar after taking Padme onto his ship and flying to the Emperor's location. After aiding her through labor, Anakin would assure her that he would help her understand the evil ways of the Jedi and live under his new empire and protection. She would give birth to Luke and Leia, who would be raised under Vader and Palpatine's direct guidance, learning the ways of the dark side from even before they could walk. As the children grew into extremely gifted and powerful Force users, talk through the galaxy made way to Sidious, who instructed Vader that Obi-Wan had survived their duel those years ago, and he had used his ship to narrowly leave the melting planet. After repairing his wounds with his cybernetics, he had reconnected with Master Yoda, who was albeit very old but still alive on the planet Dagobah. He would send Luke and Leia there to exterminate Yoda and Kenobi as their true and final test to complete their training to the dark side. Padme felt this was the right time to explain to her children to tell Obi-Wan and Yoda that there was still good in Anakin after all these years, and that he could be turned. She told them they were good people and not to believe the Emperor. After all these years, she could not pretend anymore. She loathed the Emperor and what he had turned Anakin into. She asked her children to promise to consider joining the remaining Jedi in hopes of returning to kill the Emperor and bring back their father to the light. Upon traveling to Dagobah, Luke and Leia knew there was a conflict within them. They were raised to use the dark side, but they never felt it was their true destiny. Ignoring this feeling and certain of their mission, they vowed to destroy the Jedi and pledge their loyalty to the Emperor and their father. Upon their mission to the planet, they would come across a very old and wise Yoda and Kenobi, who had created a small but powerful Jedi collective of the remaining Order 66 survivors, and various new Force users learning the ways. Upon failing to beat the old Jedi Masters, they were captured as prisoners and eventually, through fate, were turned to the light side of the Force. Agreeing to end their path as future Sith Lords, they vowed to bring their father back to the light and merge their powers to defeat the Emperor upon their return. Flying back to the Death Star to face Vader and the Emperor, they revealed their newly turned path to the light and announced to absolve their path to the rank of eventual Sith Lords. Displeased by this news, Sidious shocked Luke and Leia with flurries of Force lightning, wave after wave, leaving them alive just so that they would be punished for their actions and continue their path as his servants. While being shocked, agreed the cybernetics, he had reconnected with Master Yoda, who was albeit very old, but to the dark side. Padme felt this was the right time to explain to her children to tell back their father to the light. Upon traveling to Dagobah, Luke and Leia knew there was a conflict within them. They were raised to use the dark side, but they never felt it was their true destiny. Ignoring this feeling and certain of their mission, they vowed to destroy the Jedi and pledge their loyalty to the Emperor and their father. Upon their mission to the planet, they would come across a very old and wise Yoda and Kenobi, who had created a small but powerful Jedi collective of the remaining Order 66 survivors, and various new Force users learning the ways. Upon failing to beat the old Jedi Masters, they were captured as prisoners and eventually, through fate, were turned to the light side of the Force. Agreeing to end their path as future Sith Lords, they vowed to bring their father back to the light and merge their powers to defeat the Emperor upon their return. Flying back to the Death Star to face Vader and the Emperor, they revealed their newly turned path to the light and announced to absolve their path to the rank of eventual Sith Lords. Displeased by this news, Sidious shocked Luke and Leia with flurries of Force lightning, wave after wave, leaving them alive just so servants. While being shocked, Padme entered the Emperor's chamber as she saw what was happening to her children. Closely following behind her was none other than Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Force lightning stopped with a halt. Sidious stared into Yoda's eyes. Hatred he had not felt for decades began to flood his very cells. He had almost forgotten the true nature of the dark side.
Master Yoda, you have grown weak with age.
As he glided down the steps, his cloak draping behind him, Vader staring at Obi-Wan with pure hatred. As he began to pace back and forth, grabbing his lightsaber, "I should have finished you when I had the chance. Allow me to complete your destiny, my master." Obi-Wan grabbed his lightsaber, removing his cloak in the process, as the four most powerful Force users began to circle one another, while Luke, Leia, and Padme watched from the side. This was about to get good. If you want a part 2, I'm going to leave that to you to write it. Let me know what you want to happen in the end, and the best comment will have a new Star Wars book of their choice sent to them on me. Let's see those comments, guys.
Well, guys, we
Everyone
got a
has a fair
trophy in the
chance here.
process, and I
Write your
didn't
fan
expect
fiction below,
it.
and let's unveil the story. Thanks for watching this episode. I'll see you all in tomorrow's video of Star Wars Theory. The four warriors circled each other on the Death Star, lightsabers humming ominously throughout the Emperor's chamber. Palpatine's voice echoed as he broke the silence.
The Jedi are weak.
Oh, you will experience the full power of the dark side.
Vader front flips over Obi-Wan and they ensue in a battle so fast that Padme can't keep track with her eyes as she laid on the ground with Luke and Leia. Sidious and Yoda battled ferociously, twice as fast as Anakin and Obi-Wan. Yoda jumping off walls and objects, up, over, and around Sidious, moving like a little green comet on fire, matching each attack with a parry of his own. Luke stands to join the fight when his mother motions for Leia to help her brother. This was a moment that the Empire would either continue to rule in tyranny or finally fall. She whispers to Leia.
Bring him back.
Leia nodded, tears in her eyes, stood up with Luke and ignited her lightsaber along with him as they ran into battle. Luke moved to help Yoda in fighting the Emperor and Leia to help Obi-Wan against her father.
Don't do this, Father. The good is in you. We all know it.
As Anakin replied, "It is too late for me, my daughter." Anakin moved in to fight Obi-Wan and Leia in a swirl of red and blue, flashing and humming in all directions as Star Destroyers beyond the windows shot blasters at the Rebel fleets.
Your time has come, Master Yoda. You are no match for me in Skywalker.
Yoda, growing faint of battle at his old age, looked towards Luke who moved next to him, telling the Emperor,
Never. I'll never turn to the dark side.
Anakin was having a hard time killing Obi-Wan with Leia in the way. Not wanting to kill his own daughter, he used the Force to paralyze her and sliced her lightsaber hilt in half, pushing her gently but powerfully to the corner of the room as she fell onto the floor. Padme, screaming for Anakin to stop what he was doing, summoned the strength to get up and run towards him in a fit of rage, clearly not thinking straight. The Emperor moved towards Luke, choking him with the Force and lifting him in midair as he battled Yoda with his other hand. As Yoda's age caught up to him, he lost his footing as Sidious used his advantage to attack him with Force lightning, letting go of Luke, sending Yoda into the air and into the wall, falling motionless to the ground. Angered, Luke summoned the dark side powers within him and attacked the Emperor full force, all of his training from Vader, Sidious, Obi-Wan, and Yoda now being practiced against Palpatine in a fit of fury, his green lightsaber sending sparks in all directions as he matched the Sith Lord's impeccable yet aged moves. Vader continued to fight Obi-Wan, and Padme threw herself between them, stopping the fight. He told her to get out of his way. Obi-Wan looked very tired, yet determined to stop Vader, telling him,
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Palpatine pushed Luke to the floor with the Force and saw what Padme was doing. Having enough of her incessant whining over the years over Luke, Leia, and Anakin, he finally knew what he had to do, throwing his lightsaber straight between Anakin and Obi-Wan and into Padme's chest. Seemed like 1,000 moments in one as Anakin's eyes began to turn red with rage, betrayal, sorrow, and hatred. He had lost it. He had finally broken free of his ties to the Emperor. He had gone completely insane. As Padme fell to the floor, looking at Anakin and saying one last,
I love you.
As Palpatine retracted his lightsaber from his heart.
Lord Vader, you're growing powerful.
Anakin didn't even let his master finish as he cut off both his hands as Sidious fell to his knees before Anakin, screaming in shock. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and the others all surrounded Anakin now as the Emperor looked up at them in fear. Luke pushed his father aside and said, "Leave that to me."
Guys, this is turning
Thank you
out to
for
be
watching,
good.
everyone. What did you think? Would you like to see more of this?
This is turning out to be quite a good one.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this remastered and updated version of What If Darth Maul Was a Jedi. Now with the ending fight scene fully animated in low poly at the ending. In this episode, we will discuss the possibility and leading events to the galaxy if Maul was discovered by the Jedi Council as a young boy. Also, if you're wondering why Maul in the animation at the end still has his Sith tattoos, even though he's a Jedi now, believe me, I saw what it looked like without the tattoos, and he looked like a lobster. This looks much more cool and much more like Maul. Let's begin. If Darth Maul was a Jedi, this completely rewrites Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. leaving not only Qui-Gon alive to become Anakin's new master and possibly changing his fate, as I believe Qui-Gon had a much more authoritative grasp on his Padawans than Obi-Wan had. But it would change the story of Palpatine, who took Maul from Mother Talzin and the Night Sisters as a young boy, training him to become a ruthless machine. This would be replaced with the scenario of Maul being so attuned with the Force, as he was, that Yoda sensed his abilities just like Palpatine had, and ventured to Dathomir, Maul's home planet, to learn of this new potential Jedi. After somehow creating peace with the sisters, he would move them to Coruscant and train Maul under his prestigious teachings, unlocking his potential for power and directing it to the light side of the Force. Sensing the natural yet immense rage that Maul possessed during his training, Yoda taught him to harness these abilities instead of ignoring them, focusing on them and learning to use them to his advantage. Having been the master of Mace Windu and teaching him to harness his powers of the light and the dark, Maul was no different to this scenario. Yoda had experience with his own dark side temptations, and if anyone could teach their Padawan how to redirect the hatred and lure, it was Grandmaster Yoda. As we know, Mace mastered Vapad, which was a variant of the Form 7 lightsaber fighting style. Also, it's the same style Maul used in the original timeline, and conveniently, in this story as well. Maul understood Yoda's teachings to harness the dark side, using it to his will instead of allowing it to use him. He learned the ways of the Force for decades, becoming one of the most talented Jedi in the galaxy, achieving the rank of Master under Yoda's close tutelage. He would eventually take the place of Master Windu and teach Anakin the art of martial arts and dueling acrobatics along with Qui-Gon's teaching. Since Maul is a Jedi, this would leave Darth Sidious to have another apprentice at his side. That apprentice would most likely be Count Dooku, as it would cause Palpatine to focus more of his manipulation tactics to speed up his inevitable turn to the dark side before Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Dooku was already well on his way to turning to the dark side, especially once he left the Order, due to their lack of vision and adhering only to the people and the Republic. And as for Grievous in this timeline, well, Dooku was the person who was a large contributor to turning Grievous into a cyborg in the first place. Darth Maul would lead the Jedi as one of the most respected masters and combat duelists in the galaxy, rivaling that of Master Yoda and Mace Windu. He would use his ability to harness dark-side powers while remaining in the light, just as Master Windu can do, which is symbolized in his purple lightsaber. Purple lightsabers are indicative of Force users who are of good nature, yet use dark-side powers only when it is necessary, and are able to harness dark-side powers from their opponent's energy. Episode 1 would be replaced with Count Dooku leading to the advancement of his dealings on Geonosis in order to bring the Death Star plans to manifestation. The large battle of Jedi versus droids would still commence as it did in reality. However, the battle at the end would cause Maul to show up with Master Yoda to face Dooku. While Yoda would attend to Anakin and Obi-Wan's wounds, calling for medical attention, Maul would ignite his double-bladed lightsaber and approach Dooku without hesitation, ending him within minutes of the duel by the twirl of his saber, decapitating the Sith Lord. Sensing his feelings, he knew this was only the apprentice, as no real Sith Lord would be defeated so easily, even against Maul's skills. Yoda would then lead all of them back to Coruscant to further investigate the threat of the
I will make anybody you want on. I know I said it before, but I'll make any number, any person you want. It could be from somebody you know, actor, famous athlete. And I'll do more. And if I get in, I'll even do. I'll even do a general manager mode where I can. I will.
I'm going to turn you over to the Jedi Council.
Of course, you should. But you're not sure of their intentions, are you?
I will quickly discover the truth of all this.
After this scene here, Anakin would inform Maul of Palpatine's treachery and the fact that he was a Sith Lord. Commanding Anakin to wait in the Jedi Council, Maul would go to Sidious alone. Pushed Sidious to the corner of the window as Anakin beckoned for him to stop when he saw Darth Maul holding his lightsaber to the Emperor's throat, just like we saw in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Only this time, instead of Mace Windu, Maul had taken his place, with Windu off on a mission with Pt1, shouting that he needs him and he should be tried in the Galactic Court of Justice. Maul sneered, baring his sharp black teeth, his eyes an ice blue color. He knew this was the Sith Lord behind all the murders and turmoil in the galaxy. Under his very nose, how could he have not seen the hidden power before him? The Emperor shot fierce force lightning at Maul, which caught his lightsaber, vibrating his arm tremendously, causing pain in his bones.
Your reign is over. At last, the Jedi will be avenged. At last, the Sith will be no more.
You can't. He must stand trial. I need
He
him.
felt a shift in the Force. Unfortunately for him, Maul was too attuned to the Force and saw it before it even happened, lifting Anakin and smashing him into the ceiling, rendering him unconscious on the floor, moving to finish the job on the Emperor. When he heard a yell,
No, don't try by the Jedi. You must. Give in to anger. You will not. My powerful Pt1.
Yoda had appeared between them, facing the Emperor as he spoke to Maul from behind. Maul deactivated his lightsaber, bowing to his master. They cuffed Palpatine and sent medical droids to attend to Anakin, dealing with his fate later, banishing him from the Council and the Jedi Order. Anakin would later, in another episode, rise as the Dark Lord of the Sith, as Darth Vader, completely skipping the Mustafar battle with Obi-Wan, leaving him with all his original limbs without the need for a respirator and the suit of Darth Vader that crippled him, allowing him to truly exasperate his potential with the dark side of the Force. The Jedi Council held a hearing for the Chancellor, sentencing him to 5,000 years in the most well-guarded jail facility in the galaxy, surrounded by temple guards, rancors, and other beasts, floating in a man-made island in the depths of space.
So be it.
Okay guys, I'm gonna cut it right here because I want you all to write part 2 for me. Will Palpatine escape with... The four warriors circled each other on the Death Star, lightsabers humming ominously throughout the Emperor's chamber. Palpatine's voice echoed as...
Guys, I didn't expect us to blow them out.
You will know the power of the dark side.
Vader front flips over Obi-Wan's head, slowing the battle so fast that Padme can't keep track of her eyes as she laid on the ground with Luke and Leia. Sidious and Yoda battled ferociously, twice as fast as Anakin and Obi-Wan. Yoda jumping off walls and objects up, over, and around Sidious, moving like a little green comet on fire, matching each attack with a parry of his own. Hey everyone, as requested, today's video will be a fan fiction. There won't be any cliffhangers in this one. Rather, we'll explore the cause and effects of what if Anakin lost the pod race in Episode 1, Phantom Menace. This would change many things. For those who need the backstory to the bet placed by Qui-Gon and Watto over Anakin winning the race, here's the scene.
I'll wager my new racing pod against, say, the boy and his mother.
No pod is worth 2 slaves, not by a long shot.
The boy then.
So, as we can see, what we know is that the bet was that if Anakin won, Watto would get all the winnings minus the parts they needed for the hyperdrive, so free parts essentially, and Anakin's pod racer. Qui-Gon would leave with Anakin and have the parts to his ship so they could get out of there. However, if Anakin lost, then Watto would keep him as a slave and keep Qui-Gon's ship. Qui-Gon needed those parts just as bad as he needed to take Anakin with him to the Jedi Council. At the refusal to let Anakin go, Qui-Gon would finally threaten Watto's life if he didn't give him Anakin and the parts. Remember, Qui-Gon was not a member of the Jedi Council for reasons the Jedi to follow, and would bend situations to how he saw fit. He would then, in this case, tell Watto to give up Anakin, and if he didn't, then he would cut him up into a million tiny little pieces and destroy anyone who stopped him. Watto would scream for help, hoping any of the Hutts or their goons were near, just as Qui-Gon had threatened him with earlier, and from there it would create a massive scene where he would ignite his lightsaber along with Obi-Wan and absolutely obliterate the enemies, pointing their sabers at Watto's throat, demanding for the parts. As he looked at the dismembered goons on the floor, Watto stuttered as he accepted and told them to take whatever they want. Leaving him 20,000 credits, Qui-Gon would take the hyperdrive along with Anakin after saying his quick goodbye to his mother. As they returned to the ship, Darth Maul would ambush them in the hopes of killing Padme as Palpatine's orders. Now together, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon would fight Maul in the desert, while Padme and Anakin would run to the ship. Now that Qui-Gon's abilities were not hindered by the confined space of the melting core on Naboo in the original timeline, he had full capabilities of his Form 4 fighting style, while Obi-Wan was not hindered by the shielded beams isolating his master and leading to his death. The two would simultaneously fight Maul in a favorable surrounding, finishing the duel by cutting off his leg and forcing him to tell them who sent him, if he was the Sith Lord or just the apprentice, as there were always two. Maul would defiantly spit at Qui-Gon Jinn, who would in response thrust his saber through Maul's chest, killing the Jedi assassin and leaving him to be buried by the windswept sand. This would greatly accelerate Sidious's plot to find a new apprentice. He would seek out the Night Sisters where he found Maul as a child and complete Asajj Ventress's turn as his apprentice. Now, I do believe he would seek Dooku as well to be his right-hand man for the dealings on Geonosis, as Dooku had been fighting with the dark side temptations for years, and when Qui-Gon died, it did seal his fate with hatred. However, I do feel it was an inevitable occurrence that would have just happened anyway. Meanwhile,
Guys, I am complete awe. I'm awestruck.
Master for the Padawan. However, once the events of Episode 2 came about, Qui-Gon would then be an old man at the age of 70, passing the torch to Obi-Wan, who is now a qualified Jedi Master. Qui-Gon would become promoted, finally, to the High Council as a valued and wise member of the Order, following missions along with Master Yoda and Ki-Adi-Mundi. Asajj would be trained under Sidious instead of surrounded by Dooku so much, as we saw in the Clone Wars. This would truly bring out her abilities and cause the events of Episode 2 to change. In Anakin's quest to find his mother, he would be tipped off that she had fallen to the slavery of the Hutts, as Watto had sold her to them as a barter to set a bounty on Anakin and Obi-Wan's heads. Returning to Tatooine, his journey to the dark side would be showcased much more vividly in the movie, as we would get to see him absolutely lose himself to kill Watto, then track down the Hutts and impale every single one of them after his tortured and beaten mother would die in his arms at the Hutt's palace. As the battle at the end with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Dooku would now involve Ventress, who would engage a darker and stronger Anakin that got a taste of the dark side, as Dooku would fight Kenobi, ensuing in an epic battle where Anakin kills Ventress but falls at the same loss to Dooku, until Yoda would arrive to their aid, causing Dooku to flee as he did. This would propel the story further to Episode 3. However, Anakin would be much stronger, as he would now use the dark side more often than already at this point, allowing him to master more of his new abilities, leading to a less cocky Anakin on Mustafar once he finally transformed into Darth Vader, and thus preventing his leap to his doom on the High Ground. The story would continue onto my recent video, which is right here, titled What If Anakin Trained Luke and Leia? Which, for those new to the channel, the sequel to that is being fully animated, so that should be out relatively soon. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch it. I really hope it gave you some entertainment. I'll see you all in tomorrow's episode.
Oh, nice.
Hey everyone, before we begin, I have a big announcement. I've teamed up with a viewer of the channel who is very talented with 3D animations. In fact, he's applying to Industrial Light and Magic. We're going to work together to bring all my fanfictions to life as best as we can. so you'll have something much more real than just pictures to draw in your imagination. I just ask that you share this video or any video of mine on your Facebook or Twitter. The better my channel performs, the better the content. Now, onto today's video. This was a request by a commenter in the last video, and I think it would make for a really interesting what if. So let's get into it. What if Anakin saved his mother?
This is
in
the
episode
end.
2, we know she died after being kidnapped, tortured, and most likely abused by the Tusken Raiders. Which, on a side tangent, my theory is that Palpatine actually paid them off to capture her. But that's a different video for another time. This caused him to literally annihilate the entire village, killing the men, women, and the children, too. This was one of his large steps into the dark side world, and what I believe was the taste he needed to make him crave that power until his final transformation at Palpatine's side. Now, while in the books and comics, Anakin had to use Force fire to combust his enemies against Obi-Wan's teachings. This was definitely his leap into a world he would grow to lust. It also led to his obsession with wanting to become even more powerful than before, along with his infatuation with learning to stop people from dying, as you can see in this scene here.
Someday I will be.
I wanna watch
I will
it.
be the most powerful Jedi ever. I promise you. I will even learn to stop people from dying.
If Shmi survived, Anakin would take her back to her home with her husband. From there, Anakin would tell his mother to come back with him to Coruscant, to the Jedi Temple, where she would be safe and live the rest of her life comfortably at his protection and care, just as he had promised when he was a little boy.
I will come back and see you, Mom. I promise.
Now on Coruscant, Anakin would be able to be much more calm, happy, and wouldn't have as big of a complex regarding saving the ones he loved from dying, leading to his manic obsessions to save Padme from his dream of her passing away through childbirth, which inevitably was what changed the entire fate of the galaxy. Now, don't get me wrong, the dream would still drive him mad. However, the reason he was so obsessed with it, to the point of attempting to kill the entire Jedi race through Order 66, was because he had already failed to save his mother, and his ego couldn't bear to lose the only other person he loved, driving him to do whatever it takes to save her. When Palpatine would tell him during the opera scene that he knew of a way to stop others from dying, he would be as intrigued as he was before. However, he would be able to express his thoughts and questions, this time with his mother, the only real person he felt comfortable enough to talk to about his personal life, as he couldn't with Obi-Wan or Padme even, especially not the Council without facing banishment. His mother would tell him to talk to Obi-Wan. She would urge him to speak to his master. She trusted Qui-Gon and knew that whoever Qui-Gon trained would have been just as honest and wise. Weary of what to do, after her urging him to tell Obi-Wan, he would go to his master and tell him about the dream he had, about his relationship with Padme, and about what Chancellor Palpatine told him regarding the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis. Obi-Wan would instruct Anakin to tell the Council what the Chancellor told him in confidence, becoming very suspicious of him. Due to his loyalty and care for his Padawan, he would not tell the Council of his relationship with Padme, not until they had dealt with the Chancellor first. The Council would move to the same decision they had in Episode 3, however, now much more aware of his knowledge of the dark side. Regarding saving Padme from dying, Obi-Wan would send Anakin to the lowest floor of the Jedi Archives, where only select masters were permitted to go. From there, he would study the ancient Jedi Sith scrolls, holocrons, and lore that had been collected over the years. Searching for the holocron of the immortal Sith god, Andidu, if he couldn't find what he was looking for, then he would travel to the same place Yoda and Qui-Gon had visited before, to see the Shaman of the Wills, to learn of this new ability. After all, the ability to save life was more of a positive power, something that the Jedi would be interested in knowing. Anakin would continue to spy on Palpatine for the Council in the meantime, and upon him finally learning of his true identity, he would report him to Mace Windu as he did before, and this time he would stay put as Mace Windu had instructed, since he had no need for the Emperor now. Mace and Palpatine would fight as they had, however Sidious would hope for Anakin to come, and would purposefully lose as he did. When he could feel that Anakin would not be coming to his supposed rescue, he would unleash a flurry of Force lightning on Mace, only to have it return back onto him, resulting in Mace finally killing Palpatine and ending him for good. Order 66 would not take place, and the Jedi would still live to promote peace and justice throughout the galaxy. This would incredibly accelerate Snoke's rise, as he had no reason to stay hidden anymore, rising from the shadows to place his command on the fate of the galaxy. I'm not sure what would happen from here, as we don't have enough information on Snoke But I'd like to know what your
Alright
ideas
guys,
are.
that's the
Thank you so much for
video.
watching
Comment,
this
rate,
episode.
like,
I
and
hope you all
subscribe.
had a fantastic
I'll
day or
make
night.
another one
I
tomorrow.
wish you well, and I'll see you all at the same
I'll
time,
make
same
episode.
place, in tomorrow's episode of Star Wars Theory. And remember,
I'll make episode 2 of this, and I'll do any other videos you have. Comment, rate, like, and subscribe.
killing Palpatine and ending knowing. Anakin would continue to spy on Palpatine for the Council in the meantime, and upon him finally learning of his true identity, he would report him to Mace Windu as he did before, and this time he would stay put as Mace Windu had instructed, since he had no need to return back onto him, resulting in Mace finally killing Palpatine and ending him, rising from the shadows to place his command on the fate of the galaxy. I'm not sure what would and the Jedi would still live to promote peace and justice throughout the galaxy. This would incredibly accelerate Snoke's rise, as he had no reason to stay hidden anymore, rising from the shadows to place his command on the fate of the galaxy. I'm not sure what would happen from here, as we don't have enough information on Snoke, but I'd like to two of the most powerful Force users.
There's a funny video on there that I like from this YouTuber. I think you might like it.
Let's get to the point. Who was
With no monsters left on the field, I summon Dark Magician. Declare direct attack. Ah, you got me. Told you.
The address, it is extremely debated who had the upper hand in Episode 3's battle. Yoda and Sidious seem to be drawn in a stalemate, with both showcasing their force powers, acrobatic speed, and dueling techniques. However, it didn't seem like either one was victorious in the end. So, let's do what we do best, and go to the comics, novelizations, and expanded universe for answers that the movies didn't give us. We'll begin with the most canon evidence that we have, the Revenge of the Sith novelization. During the duel, it explains how Yoda pushed Sidious to the edge and forced him to drop his lightsaber.
I hope we can play like this at home against Winnipeg.
We see Palpatine using a flurry of Force lightning, but no lightsaber to be found. As Yoda deflects the attack back onto the Emperor, it even says in one sentence that the Emperor is doomed. In Palpatine's favor, however, he did knock Yoda's lightsaber out of his hand as well, and the duel they held with the Force lightning attack at the end resulted in an explosion of energy, sending both beings in opposing directions. Due to Yoda's smaller and lighter stature, he was sent further, tumbling to the depths of the Senate Coliseum. Many times we can see Palpatine's face turn from arrogant to surprised and afraid when his powers were matched. Not to mention how he tried to escape in their first meeting. It can be hypothesized that he was trying to get to Vader because he could sense his danger. But nevertheless, that's not to say that Palpatine didn't have the upper hand at all. In fact, I'm going to now read you word for word a passage from the book explaining Yoda's perspective from the narrator's views. There came a turning point in the clash of the light against the dark. It did not come from a flash of lightning or slash of energy blades, though there were these in plenty. It did not come from a flying kick or a surgically precise punch, though these were traded specifically. It came as the battle shifted from the holding office to the Great Chancellor's podium. It came as the hydraulic lift beneath the podium raised...
Guys, I think we can get to 20 before the end of the game. What do you think?
A laser point of battle flaring at the focus of the vast emptiness of the Senate arena. It came as the
You can stop doing that. I have a mic in.
free of their curving walls and made of the hands rolling thunder roar that echoed the Senate's cheers for the galaxy's Emperor. When the lineage of
I think we can, guys. What do you think?
Jedi that came when Yoda found himself alone against the dark. In that lightning spear tornado of feet and fists and blades and bashing machines, his vision finally pierced the darkness that had clouded the Force. Finally, he saw the truth. This truth that he, the Avatar of Light, supreme master of the Jedi Order, the fiercest, most implacable, most devastatingly powerful foe the darkness had ever known, just didn't have it. He'd never had it. He had lost before he started. He had lost before he was born. The Sith had changed. The Sith had grown, had adapted, had invested 1,000 years intensively studying into every aspect of not only the Force, but Jedi lore itself, in preparation for this exact day. The Sith had remade themselves. They had become new. The Jedi had spent that same millennium training to refight the last war.
Wow, guys, the shot different. I can't believe the shot differential.
They could not be burned away by any torch of the Force. The brighter the light, the darker their shadow. How could one win a war against the dark when the war itself had become the dark's own weapon? He knew at that instant that this insight held the hope of the galaxy. But if he fell here, that hope would die with him.
A prophecy.
For this reason, I believe he knew he had to seek exile in Dagobah forever, so as to not be found. Because if he died, so did the Jedi legacy with him. He knew there was a chance that if he stayed alive, he would possibly train another someday. Another point I'd like to bring rise to is that Yoda was over 860 years old here. That's almost a millennia of Force knowledge and experience, whereas Palpatine was only around 50 years old in Revenge of the Sith. While we can assume Yoda was old and frail, so can we with Palpatine. The dark side, as stated by Lucas, allows the user to become more powerful than Jedi. However, it takes a greater toll on the subject. I like to think of it as using steroids in the real world. Sure, the subject becomes much stronger in an extremely short amount of time. However, longevity and toll that it takes on the body is much more severe. There's always a price to pay for shortcuts, and using the dark side was no exception to this rule. I think Palpatine's speed was something to be aware of as well in this duel. He was fast enough to block Yoda's quick attacks, as well as his Force lightning was so fast in the beginning that Yoda didn't even have time to dodge it or deflect it. Now that being said, Yoda is a better lightsaber duelist with his Ataru fighting style, even though Sidious has mastered all 7 lightsabers.
Alright, guys, comment, rate, like, and subscribe, and I'll get right back to you.
Open field, without any objects, ledges, or obstacles to impede their fight.
Thanks for watching.